Yeah, I'm going pretty easy right now, so it's not too bad. When I do hard heat training sessions, the heart rate will be 155 to 160. Right now it's probably 135. See if I can get it reconnected. There we go. It's even lower than that. When I first started doing heat training, yes, I would look very closely at the power and core temperature and how the core temperature would go up throughout a heat training session. But now that I've done so many, I know how stable it is, and I know how well it matches up to my RPE, my effort, and my heart rate too. So today it's more about a heart rate goal than a core temperature goal, because I know just by doing this power at this heart rate in this amount of clothing, I know my core temperature will get high, and then I'll get a benefit from that. So today, keeping the heart rate, I would say below 150. So right now, got quite a bit of room. Yeah, definitely going off the feeling. And that's just because I have so much experience with heat training now. At the beginning, it was very closely watching the core temperature and all the other metrics, because it would easily get out of hand. I remember some of the first heat training sessions, I'd be doing 200, 210 watts. My heart rate would be 160, and I'd be going so hard. It would feel so hard because the core temperature was so high, because I wasn't adapted to it. But now it's completely different. Yeah, I think there's a ton of benefits to heat training. It definitely makes a huge difference. Not only to just regular training and regular fitness, but for racing and training in the heat. It makes a huge difference. I recommend it once or twice a week, doing longer blocks, a few weeks at a time, only a couple of months. If you're already experienced with it. The sensor is definitely expensive, but there's no subscription and it'll last a long time. I've had mine for a couple years, no major issues with it ever. So as an investment, it's definitely worth it for the long haul. I mean, I use it every day, a couple heat training sessions a week. Lasts a long time. I think I should have shifted for that hill. Yeah, it definitely does both, which is a nice thing too. You don't have to do it too intensely or too specifically. Just a couple of zone 1 rides and you'll get all those benefits. So that's a good question. I'm not the most technologically advanced, but I believe, I mean, you get the most out of it from the app. So you need the app to see the temperature and everything, but you can also connect the sensor to Zwift directly, so you can see your temperature in the Zwift app without having the core sensor app open, which is really nice. I don't know how many other integrations there are like that, but you definitely get the most out of it using the core sensor app, which again, it's free and no subscription, so not a pain to me at all. Yes, that is right. You can connect it to the external bike computers, Garmin, Wahoo. So yeah, it's really useful for a lot of different things. It's not like it only works with one specific device. It works with a lot. Yeah, I would definitely use the app with it. I don't see any reason not to. And you don't need it open all the time when you're riding or using the sensor. I would definitely use it at the beginning to keep an eye on your core temperature and heat strain. But once you know those numbers, you can just use the feeling and experience. Don't need to stare at the number the entire ride. Yes, definitely agree with both of those. Good to use indoors and out. And that's what I really like, is that there's so much benefit from it. There's not just one way to use it. Originally, a lot of people thought that heat training would only benefit you if you were training for hot weather races, but it's so much more than that. Yes, that's right. That's definitely a big part of it. I would say, of course, it'll never completely replace it, but for people that can't go to altitude or just don't have the means, don't have the time, don't have the money, don't have the location, it's an awesome substitute. And that's how I am. I mean, it's like, I can't go to Colorado for a month. It's too far away, too expensive, time away from home and all that. But yeah, ROUVY's really, really good. I love it for the Zone 1 and Zone 2 rides especially. I've done workouts and races on here before. But yeah, for all these different routes, Zone 1 and Zone 2, it's awesome. Different stuff all the time. Yeah, it's one of those things that it's really, altitude camps are really just for the pros. I mean, if you're a really serious amateur training for something like Leadville or another high altitude race, it'll be worth it if you're really serious about your result. But for most people, probably doesn't make that much of a difference. I mean, the cost of it is super, super high. Thousands and thousands of dollars, depending on where you go and how long and all that. But yeah, when you think about that versus the cost and the hassle of doing heat training with a core sensor, it's not even close. It's like 100 to 1, the value that you can get from heat training. If you're a professional, I mean, if I was a professional, I'd love to go to an altitude camp. Looks awesome. Yes, that's right. It's like the same thing with the amateurs that spend $15,000 on a bike, but they don't care about their nutrition. They drink beer all the time. It's like, you can get so much. Yeah, I was just saying the same thing. Yeah, same idea. People focus on the things that are fun to focus on rather than boring things like nutrition that make something way big of a difference. Much bigger difference. Right, exactly. The aero position on the bike. People underestimate that one so much. They focus on gaining 3 or 4 watts on their FTP, whereas an aero position is going to save you 3 or 4 times as much. Exactly, yeah. And fueling too. Huge one. Huge factor for performance. Yeah, I think a lot of amateurs really, really overemphasize their weight and their power to weight ratio. In like 99% of cycling, racing instances, different disciplines and routes, courses and race situations, raw power is going to be better than watts per kilo, but people focus on watts per kilo so hard because that's what the pros do, but they also do 5-hour mountain stages with 5,000 meters of climbing. So in that case, watts per kilo is more important. But for most amateurs, flatter courses, different routes, lower speeds, it's just raw power is better, and fueling, speed, all that stuff. Yeah, I think most people would benefit so much more from improving their FTP, their speed, their nutrition, their repeatability and fatigue resistance, rather than losing 2, 3, 4 pounds. For most people, that's not going to make as big of a difference, and it's way more work physically and mentally. So you think fatigue resistance, training that metric specifically is the next big thing? Because I think I agree. I don't know if it's the number one next big thing. I think heat training is kind of doing that right now. But fatigue resistance is definitely up there. That one kind of depends on the type of racing. Because the way that professional road racing is going, it's definitely more like that. Like who has the most left after 4.5, 5 hours of racing. For shorter amateur races, it's a lot different, hard to compare. So it is a great metric though. It would be awesome if you could, like you said, measure that with a single number. Yeah, for World Tour riders, that's pretty much everything, because there's so many guys that can do 7 watts a kilo for 20 minutes, but to do that fresh, there's probably 1,000 guys in the world that can do that, but to do that at the end of stage 18 of the Tour de France, after 5 hours of racing, it's just a completely different level. That would put you with the best guys, but there's probably only 3 guys that can do that on a good day. And then you have to ask yourself, how often can you have a good day? Because for Pogačar, it's pretty much every day is a good day. For Jonas Vingegaard, it's probably this year, maybe 3/4 of the days were good for him, and the rest, he wasn't up to his normal standard. And then for Remco, maybe half the days were good, half the days explode, get dropped, sick, don't finish, something like that. I mean, maybe not half, but at his best, in a fresh 20-minute effort, Remco and Vingegaard can probably stay with Pogačar. They can at least be within 1 or 2%. But at the tour, it's minutes. They're so different. Yeah, I agree. Recruiting for the pro ranks for sure. That would be a great metric. And that's something that would grow a ton in young riders. They probably have VO2 max numbers similar to the best pros, but their fatigue resistance would be so much lower. Yeah, I'm a fan of Remco. I don't think I would sign him to my team for the inconsistency, but I love him as a rider, as a guy. He's pretty funny. He's very interesting, very focused, but he also likes to live like a balanced life. It seems like. But yeah, his performances, like, it's gotta be mental when he blows up and pulls out of a race. There's no way he goes from third best rider in the world to I can't even finish the stage. Physically, you would have to be getting super sick every time, but it's just different. Time for the next course. That was a good one. Nice and hot now. Heart rate's pretty high. So we'll end this there. That was a good route. And then the next one, stage 5, I think. This is a shorter one. Yeah, only 10K. Yeah. Next one's pretty long. Gotta do them in order to get all the coins and everything. So yeah. So this one should be very quick. It looks like it's a net downhill. Oh, we start with climb now. Yeah, that's as much as I know about Pmax. It's not a metric that I personally use or use with my athletes. I understand it as an important metric. At the same time, I think unless you have a gold standard, top of the line power meter, your 1 second max, I mean, what does that actually mean? How accurate is that? If you have a one-sided older power meter, pedal power meter versus a crank power meter, if you're using a trainer's number versus your secondary power source, like, I mean, I don't know if it really, unless you're a track sprinter, cyclocross rider, something like that, where your peak power is super, super important. If you're a pure sprinter on the road, you could probably test that. But for most riders, I don't think it's super relevant. I could be wrong in the future, but that's my experience with it, or lack of experience. Yeah, it's definitely cool to know. I agree. I think, for me personally, I think I've hit just over 1200 watts a couple times in my life. Otherwise, most of my sprints are around 1100 peak when I'm pretty fresh, 1000 when I'm fatigued. But yeah, in the studies, when it's that accurate, when the equipment is that good, it's being calibrated for every test, then you can get really good numbers. I would never compare different test numbers between different devices. I wouldn't compare a lab result to the result on your indoor trainer at home, or your crank arm power meter from your road bike with an outdoor test. So it's just not going to be accurate enough down to the watt. It'll probably be between 50 watts of accuracy, but what does that really mean if it's not more than 10 or 20 watts of accuracy for just 1 second? Yeah, sprint power, explosive power has nothing to do with FTP. So there's plenty of amateur riders who have an FTP of less than 200 watts who could easily hit 1500 watts in a sprint. That's mostly genetic, mostly just born with fast twitch muscle fibers, or they come from a different sport where they train that explosivity. For me, I'm definitely more type 2. The endurance fibers, longer steady state, even VO2 max, but I've never had a super good sprint. Typical heat training session, I'll do about an hour. A longer one, hour 15 to 90 minutes. I haven't gone past 90 minutes That's pretty long for a heat training session. Today, probably gonna do an hour and 10, somewhere around there. So, and that's just down to how much time I have today. I could have done hour 20, hour 30, but ran out of time doing work stuff. But at the beginning of heat training, I would only do 20, 30 minutes to get used to it, because it was really hard. Now it's pretty comfortable. My heart rate and effort will stabilize, so I can hold it for much longer. That's a really interesting test to do, to set the turbo to a certain resistance and try to break the resistance. I've never heard of that. I've never tried it. For me, I'd be worried that I would break something probably inside the trainer, like one of the resistance. I don't even know. I've just never tried that. That is interesting though. Yeah, it comes back quickly when you're doing the heat training. When you haven't done it, or you've never done it before, if you're not totally adapted to it, the first session or two is going to be very hard. So it's important to not overdo it, so that you can ease your body into the adaptations, allowing it to recover for the next session. That's really interesting. I would say for the vast majority of people, there are some adaptations and benefits. I mean, for almost everyone. I haven't heard of, personally, I haven't had someone come to me and say, I did a structured, proper heat training block and saw zero benefits from it. So that's interesting to have that experience. And I'm wondering, I'm curious what numbers you went by, saying you were fully acclimated, but didn't get any benefits. Because normally in a 3-month training block anyway, I would expect some benefits. Yeah, for me, I put a big towel on the stem. I think you can see it right here. Yeah. It's a big, not like a shower towel, but one step down in size from that. So I keep that on the bars. It gets soaked in sweat, but it protects everything from the bar tape to the stem. Oh, heart rate's coming up now. Getting hot. Take it a little bit easier. So at 90 to 95%, what kind of heat training were you doing? Like, was it 2 sessions a week, zone 1 for an hour heat training? Or was it more often than that? And I'm surprised if you didn't see any increase in performance, FTP, feeling on the bike, that kind of thing. That's what I've experienced. And that's what most people experience. But again, it doesn't work for everyone. Just like with ketones or bicarb, they work for some people and they don't work for others. The whole drivetrain, I guess, I haven't really looked, but I've never noticed any sweat behind like my pedals. Like, I wear thick socks, because if I wear thin socks, I'll sweat through the socks and through my shoes, which gets pretty nasty. But with thick socks, my socks kind of absorb all the sweat during heat training, so then I don't end up with a pool of sweat under my shoes after the ride, but I don't really tend to sweat outside the back of my kit, so the drivetrain stays protected from that. Yeah, that was something I noticed right away. When I wore thin socks and I sweat through the bottom of the shoes, there was just a puddle of sweat on the floor through my shoes. All right, so it definitely sounds like you were doing proper heat training 2-3 times a week. And what kind of racing or power testing did you do in between during those months to kind of track your progress? And was the training consistent that whole time? I'm very curious. This is a hilly route. Yeah, it's a good question. It's pretty similar to what I was thinking. Right, you could measure performance in hot conditions versus just normal performance on the bike. That's true, yeah. You definitely have to measure, has your actual training changed, or your shape, or your weight, or life stress, anything like that? Like, was heat training the only variable that changed, or was there something else too? I totally see what you're saying about the studies, but with every study, I am super skeptical of a study's result initially because there's so many factors. The sample size is probably so small. They've probably only done it once before. You have to see where all of the variables and conditions ideal for this experiment, and what level of people did they test. Did they test professional athletes, or did they test people off the couch, or amateurs, somewhere in between? So it's one of those things where the studies say one thing, but I tend to follow the pros and the world tour and the coaches and those scientists because they're usually a few years ahead of the studies. Like, they've been doing torque training for longer. Some studies just came out that said torque training was really beneficial. Same with heat training. They've been doing heat training for years. Pogacar's been doing it for a couple years now, and studies are still saying that it might not work. And there's very few studies on it too, with different protocols and all that. So if those guys are doing it consistently year after year, it probably works. If they do it 1 year and then don't do it at the next, it probably didn't work. There's a lot of different variables to look at, but that's one of them that I noticed. Probably 20 minutes that I'd like to do for today's ride, so let's see what options we have. 15-minute cool down sounds pretty good. Let's do a 20-minute route. The heart rate is high, I can hear it beating in my head. Yeah, for that challenge, that one's gonna be too long. Let's do maybe a recommended one that's like 10K. Not quite. Let's go to most live riders. So 10K. No. Really long. I could just do a longer one, just do part of it. Let's go. Central Park. Here we go. 10K. Yeah, I agree with looking at the test subjects. A lot of times it is amateurs or just average people. So if you're a high-level cyclist, you can't really look at those numbers confidently. Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where it works for some people, doesn't work for everyone. So if you try it out and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's just one of those things where most people get a benefit, but not every single one. In all of these studies, there could be someone who benefits 20% positively and someone who gets 0 or -5. So you can look at the averages, but there's always a big range. That's true, I feel the same way. Yeah, that stuff is like, but if it makes you 0.5% faster, it costs $3 grand. It's like, there's lots of other ways to get that type of benefit. Yeah, it kind of freaks me out when there's like the cars on the route and the pedestrians and dogs, because it like fades into like a ghost, and then it'll like slow you down. Sometimes there's a car coming straight at you. It's a great look. It looks super real. Yeah, that's a good point. I've done probably every course on Zwift, many of them multiple times. Probably ridden Alta Zwift 200 times, whereas on ROUVY, you would never have enough time to finish all of the routes. So on Zwift, I definitely like that whenever you jump on, there's a huge community of riders, an amount of riders on each route in each world, and then the races, the verified races, the Prestige series I was just doing on Thursdays. Zwift Racing League is awesome. Those kinds of things are really fun on Zwift. Ooh, I got hot. Heart rate's really high for that power. Yeah, the Zwift definitely looks a lot different. I see what you're saying. There's like the pros and cons of everything. For the realism and for the variety of routes, ROUVY is the best for sure. Huge, huge library. You would never finish it all. Look at these crazy cyclists in the bike lane. I don't know how it works there. If someone knows, put it in the comments. In Central Park, are you supposed to only pass on the left? It looks like there's no cars. So what's the difference between this right bike lane with the arrows and the center bike lane with no arrows? And then pedestrians on the left side running. Are they going, can they run two-way? Can they walk two-way around Central Park? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I've never been to New York City, but one day. Yeah, it's definitely confusing. I don't know how it works exactly. That's interesting. Thanks for looking it up. Faster than 20. I wonder how often cyclists get speeding tickets through Central Park. I'm pretty sure I've seen clips of group rides, not official races, but group rides that going around Central Park and racing at between 30 and 35 miles an hour. I wonder if they do it at 5 a.m. or something like that, when it's super, super quiet. Got about 1K to go and then I'll be done with this ride. I'm pretty tired, or at least really hot. Heart rate really high. looks like a two-way lane for pedestrians, middle lane for slow cycling, right outer lane for fast cycling. I guess that kind of makes sense because you separate the fast cyclists from the pedestrians. You can only go one way, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that get confused and go the wrong way. Yeah, it is pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna get going, get a cold shower, and then go to yoga. Thanks for watching. See you next time.